All right, just take a look around you for a second. Everything you see, the screen you're looking at, yourself, the world outside, we think of all that as a collection of things, right? But what if that's not right? What if all of reality, from the tiniest particle to the biggest galaxy, is just the result of one single repeating pattern? That's the wild idea we're diving into today.
So, where does everything truly come from? I mean, that is the ultimate question, isn't it? It's what drives so much of science. In this explainer, we're going to go on a journey from the absolute bottom all the way to the top to try and understand where the structure of our universe actually comes from. We'll be checking out a fascinating new theory that suggests a single recipe is responsible for, well, for everything.
Okay, so to even start answering that, we have to ask a simpler question, right? What is matter, really? Now, our current understanding of physics is amazing, but it has this weird quirk. It describes our world with different theories for different sizes. We've got one set of rules for the super tiny quantum stuff and a totally different set for huge cosmic things like galaxies. What's missing is the bridge, the single unifying story of how one level creates the next. And wow, the scales we're talking about here are just mind-blowing. Think about it like a giant cosmic ladder. At the very bottom rung, you have quarks. They build up to become protons and neutrons. Those build up to become atoms. Atoms build stars, and stars build entire galaxies. So the big question is there some common thread, some single rule that applies to every single rung on that ladder? Well, this is where a really cool new idea comes into play. It's a framework called Constraint-Resonance Emergence theory, or CRET for short. And it basically says, yeah, there is a secret recipe for creation. A single, three-step process that can literally build the entire universe, one layer at a time. So what's in this recipe? It's actually super simple, just 3 steps. First, you start with a sea of randomness and pure possibility. That's what the theory calls micro-level fluctuations. Second, something called resonance kicks in. This is like tuning in to one specific frequency in a sea of static and turning the volume way up on just that one pattern. And third, that amplified pattern locks into place, creating a stable structure that in turn constrains the randomness it came from. Fluctuation, resonance, and constraint. That's it. That's the whole shebang.
Okay, so the fancy official term for this is constraint resonance emergence, but the really important part here is the phrase scale invariant. All that means is that this recipe isn't tied to one specific force or one particular size. Krat proposes that this is a universal way of organizing things that works just as well for tiny quantum fields as it does for massive galaxies. It's for, well, everything.
All right, let's see this recipe in action, shall we? To do that, we've got to go right back to the beginning. And I mean the very beginning. We're zooming all the way down to the absolute foundation of reality to see where this all gets started.
And this is where things get really wild. Our starting point, it's not nothing, not at all. It's what physicists call the quantum vacuum. And you gotta understand, this isn't some empty, dead space. No way. It's this bubbling, chaotic sea of pure energy and potential, constantly fluctuating. This is our raw material. This is our micro level. There's a line from the theory that just nails this idea perfectly. The micro level supplies possibility space, not form. What does that mean? It means the quantum vacuum has all the potential parts, all the ingredients, but it hasn't decided what to build yet. It's just a field of pure possibility waiting for the rest of the recipe to give it shape. Okay, so we're at the very bottom. Now for the fun part. Let's hit reverse and build the entire universe back up piece by piece, just to see if this create recipe really holds up at every single level. It's like a cascade building on itself. So what's the very first thing to pop out of that quantum chaos? Hadrons. You know these guys. They're the protons and neutrons that make up the heart of every atom. These are the first stable things our recipe cooks up. So let's apply the recipe. Step 1, fluctuation. That's the quantum fields, the quarks and gluons just zipping around randomly. Step 2, resonance. This comes from a really strong rule in physics that basically says quarks can't be left alone. This rule selects a specific, stable combination. And step 3, constraint. Bam, a stable hadron locks into place. First level of creation, done. But here's the magic. It doesn't stop. The process just starts over. Those stable hadrons we just made, they now become the new random fluctuations for the next level up. They're the ingredients for the next step in the recipe, creating atoms. And check this out. It's the exact same pattern. The hadrons and electrons buzzing around, that's our fluctuation. The laws of physics that govern how they bind together, that's our resonance. And the result, the constraint, a stable atom, with its nucleus locked in and its electrons in those perfect orbits. Same recipe, just on a bigger scale. It's incredible.
All right, let's keep going up the ladder. We've got atoms. Now, huge clouds of these atoms and plasma spread throughout the early universe. And guess what? They become our new micro level, the new sea of possibility for something way bigger to emerge. And would you believe it, the Crete pattern still works perfectly, even at this insane scale. You start with tiny little differences in the density of these massive gas clouds. That's the fluctuation. Then gravity kicks in, that's the resonance, relentlessly pulling everything together. And what's the final stable constraint that locks into place? A star, a gigantic fusion-powered star. Okay, we're almost at the top of our ladder. We've built stars. Now, the stars themselves become the building blocks, the fluctuating little pieces for the grandest structure of them all.
And for the last time, let's run the recipe. The movement of billions and billions of stars, that's our fluctuation. Their combined gravity pulling on each other, that's a huge resonance that organizes them into elegant patterns. And the final breathtaking constraint, a stable galaxy, like our very own Milky Way. I mean, from subatomic particles to galaxies, with one single recipe. That's just wild.
So let's just pause and think about this. What does it actually mean if this is true? If the universe isn't a bunch of stuff, but a series of patterns built on patterns? Well, the implications are, they're huge.
This quote from the theory just says it all. Matter isn't a collection of objects. It's a fractal hierarchy. That just means the same basic pattern repeats itself at every scale, big and small. It completely reframes how we think about, well, everything. Matter isn't a thing, it's a process.
And this new way of thinking might even solve one of the biggest puzzles in physics. You've heard of dark matter, right? This invisible stuff we need to add to our models to make galaxies spin correctly? Well, Crit suggests a pretty radical alternative. Maybe we don't need dark matter at all. Maybe the structure we see just naturally emerges from this process, from space-time and matter being so deeply connected. And that really gets to the core of it. We usually think of space-time as the stage, and matter as the actors performing on that stage. But what if that's wrong? Crete is saying the stage and the actors are created at the same time, from the same stuff, by the same recipe. They aren't separate. They're part of one single, unified process of emergence. So if there's one thing to remember from all of this, it's those three steps: fluctuation, resonance, constraint. It's a simple, powerful idea that this might be the single recipe the universe uses to build everything we see, from the tiniest quark to the biggest galaxy. And that leaves us with one last question to chew on. Is the universe really built from things? Or is it all just a single, beautiful pattern, repeating itself over and over, echoing from the quantum foam all the way up to the stars?